What is happening? What is going on? Chat. Chat. Hello. The stream crashed. What the fuck? The stream crashed. Bro. Oh my god. The stream crashed. That's so whack. Bro, get that shit off the... No. Bro, that is the wackest shit ever. Get that shit out of here. That is so whack. Yeah, get that out of here. That didn't happen. That is stupid. Anyways, yeah, it's back up again. So how we doing, chat? How is everybody? That's so whack, bro. Bro, I swear if everyone's gone, I swear to God. I swear. That's so stupid. Okay, hold on. Give me a No, don't do the no. Don't do the thing. Okay, it's not doing the thing. No, it's still doing the thing. It's still doing it. Okay. It stopped doing it. Bro, the stream crashed. That's so stupid. Everyone's gonna leave and it's dumb. I don't, whatever. How we doing, chat? Chat, did everyone go? Everyone left because the stream crashed. That's stupid. And now, yeah, so no, what happened was my computer said, hey, no, you're not streaming today. And so I said, well, I am. So, yeah. Oh, no, no, no. You're still here. Okay, I had the list of things we're gonna react to. We got like 10 videos right now. Dude, I missed I've been gone. I missed a lot. I've been gone for long enough to miss two two John uploads, basically like two of everyone, and they upload like once every like twice a year. It's crazy. Okay, hold on, give me a moment, and then we're gonna start reacting to stuff. Thank you, Mom. Yeah. Yeah. How was your day, chat? Mine was pretty average, just work, and then now I'm here. It's a pretty average day. All right, we're going. We're gonna start with we'll start with the John video. Two John videos because his production is crazy. I'm going to kill you. Yo. Oh, wait. In GTA and Minecraft and in Smash Brothers. All right, here we go. We're gonna. Oh my God. Oh my God. That's bad. Okay, hold on, chat. We're working on this. Give it a moment. Oh my God. Make it stop.
Oh my.
Shut up, John. Okay. All right. Okay. Jesus. Camera no work. Okay, there we go. It working. Oh, nope, now it not work. I lag. Oh, now it work again. Yay. Okay. Yeah. All right. Turn off the stupid music. Okay, the first one we're gonna react to John. This is called the big twist of FNAF. If you can probably see that on stream, the big twist of FNAF sister location. Now I'm assuming he's talking about the desk thing, in which I don't know. Oh, it might be that theory. When was this made? 7 months ago. Yeah, December 21st. That is around the time of Help Wanted 2, so it might. Okay, all right, let's see what you got, Johnny boy. Tell me if the volume's like too quiet, too loud, if you can hear me or the video, and but the video and not me, yada 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 yada. Let's go. Oh God.
What? Oh my God. AR plush baby. What's she doing here?
Is that good? Is that good? Can you hear me in the video?
I'm gonna cry. I'm gonna cry.
Hold on, this quality is absolutely horrible. There we go.
The last 4 years worth of FNAF games, there's been some subtle or even blatant callback to sister location. This is one of the biggest mysteries of modern FNAF because it feels like Scott and Steelwool are desperately trying to tell us something. And it wasn't until now that I think I've figured it out. This year, sister location turned 9 years old.
Excuse me, or I guess bless me. Sneeze. Sorry,
And
what, John? What are you saying, John? Are you saying something? Were you saying something, John?
What?
What?
Oh my God. AR plush baby. What's she doing here? I'm gonna cry. I'm gonna cry.
You okay, John?
In the last 4 years worth of FNAF games, there's been some subtle or even blatant callback to sister location. This is one of the biggest mysteries of modern FNAF.
Wait, pause. I actually, I've brought this up several times. In every like Steel Wool game, why is there always a sister location every time? So they'll adapt a game or a game series, like FNAF 1, FNAF 2, FNAF 3. They'll adapt that normally. And then like there's the other stuff like FNAF 4 sister location. You know what I mean. But anytime there's an odd one out, it's always sister location related. In FNAF 4, you have Nightmare Fredbear, Nightmare Eon, both of which appear in the normal game. But then you have the other two, Funtime Freddy and Circus Baby, both of which are sister location related, and they're both not in the normal game. They're the odd ones out. Then you have Vent Repair. You have Mangle, and then you have Ennard, right? And then in Help Wanted 2, you have what John has on screen right now, the sister location elevator at the end of the Princess Quest 4 thing. And then who's the final boss? What's the boss fight? It's Baby. So it's again another sister location thing. So yeah, I'm glad he picked up on that.
Like Scott and Steelwool are desperately trying to tell us something, and it wasn't until now that I think I've figured it out. This year, Sister Location turned 9 years old, and in those 9 years, we've figured out a lot of stuff surrounding the game, but nothing compares to what I'm going to talk about today. There's details and clues that have been right in front of our faces that were completely overlooked for years. Until now. Let's get started.
What do you mean?
One thing that's always been weird to me about Sister Location is how sci-fi Scott suddenly took the series. Maybe
well, he did. Okay.
You'll relate to this, but I've always found it weird how Afton was able to build a giant underground bunker directly beneath his house. How much did this cost? Where did he get the money to build this? And even if he did have the money, logistically, how would someone build something like this? Well, the answer is he didn't build it. It's been widely
What? Hold on.
A giant underground about Sister Location is how sci-fi Scott suddenly took the series. Maybe you'll relate to this, but I've always found it weird how Afton was able to build a giant underground bunker directly beneath his house.
Pretty easy. Well, not from my skill set, but for him, yeah.
How much did this cost? Where did he get the money to build this? And even if he did have the money, logistically, how would someone build something like this? Well, the answer is he didn't build.
Who? Oh, I think I know where he's gonna go with this. I think.
It's been widely believed for a while now that William Afton was the businessman of Fazbear Entertainment, who handled all of the money, while his partner Henry was the creative genius, who designed and built
He might take this
was
where
backed up by the newest game, Secret of the Mimic, where we learned that while Henry was working with Edwin on the animatronics,
I got the change order from Hen last night. It would be so much easier to keep using the spring locks.
Afton was the one working on the business side of things. Throughout the game, we see Afton attempt to steal all of Edwin's employees and bankrupt his entire company. Afton eventually gets what he wants and owns all of Edwin's, quote, software development and the entire MCM.
Yeah, he poaches like pretty much the whole company from the outside. Not even from within. That's kind of funny. Anyway.
But in this message, we learn that Afton doesn't just take Edwin's company, he takes all of Edwin's land. Quote, although we now technically own the land, we would never touch the house your parents built. This is important because this house that Edwin's parents built happens to have a bedroom that looks very similar to the four bedroom and a giant underground bunker directly beneath it. The house also sits on a hill, just like the Afton house. When Afton took over Edwin's land, he got access to a house on a hill with a built-in underground bunker directly beneath it.
Oh, I see. So he's saying he didn't build the bunker, he bought the house with the bunker. Okay.
He even stole the toys right out of Edwin's son's
he straight up stole the
room and gave them to his kids. Everything was stolen from Edwin. Need more proof? In Secret of the Mimic, when we first enter Edwin's underground bunker and get on the little ride, you can hear a song start playing in the background. This song is called Breathing Corridors and was created by Leon Riskin, Scott's
Leon, the composer for FNAF.
Go-to composer for all of the FNAF soundtracks. The song Breathing Corridors is actually about 3 minutes long, but since this little ride only lasts about a minute, we never actually get to hear the whole song in-game. So one day, while listening to the entire soundtrack, I noticed that Breathing Corridors is literally just a slowed-down version of Venta Black from Sister Location.
No way. Oh, okay, John. All right, John. Okay, John. I like you, John. Oh, snap.
Key have the same sound and have that same 4-note motif. This was just the cherry on top of an already solid theory, but after realizing that Afton very likely stole Edwin's underground bunker and used it to create Sister Location, a lot more connections started to appear. In Secret of the Mimic, we meet Dispatch, who works for
Darn it,
Fazbear
John.
Entertainment.
Hey, buddy. This is Dispatch with Fazbear Entertainment. How are you feeling?
Dispatch is the one guiding us throughout the game, but shortly after we enter MCM, it's revealed that M1 from inside of Mixes takes over and starts mimicking Dispatch's voice.
Awesome. Glad to see you made it here without any complications whatsoever.
This is important
Well,
because the Mixes
yeah.
machine containing M1 is located underground in Edwin's bunker. The same bunker that Afton would allegedly use to create Sister Location. This means that Afton seemingly would have access to an advanced AI that has the capability of sounding just like Dispatch.
Just
Glad to see you made it here without any complications whatsoever.
Welcome to the first day.
Now remind me of, yeah, I was gonna say Hand Unit's voice and Funtime Freddy's ability. Yeah, I see. Yeah, good stuff, John.
I will be your personal guide to help you.
Okay, yeah, what?
Exact key have the
I know that.
This is Dispatch.
Secret of the Mimic, we meet Dispatch. Dispatch's voice.
Made it.
Being M1, Afton would allegedly.
Yeah.
Glad to see you made it here without any complications whatsoever.
Welcome to the first day of your exciting new
Oh,
career. I will be
God.
your personal guide to help you get
John.
If you don't know already, Dispatch from Secret of the Mimic and Hand Unit from Sister Location actually share the same voice actor, Andy Field. While this isn't the first time a voice actor has played multiple roles in this franchise, this specific instance feels more intentional. I think it makes
Why?
sense that when Afton took over Edwin's underground bunker, he also acquired F10N4, which is an AI that contained the voice of Dispatch. This could have been how Afton got the voice for Hand Unit, but I don't
I'm down for that.
think that's all he got. I think Afton also got his hands on the Mimic program.
Bingo. And that goes into Funtime Freddy, Baby, and all that stuff.
Let me explain. In Security Breach, it's been basically confirmed that all of the Glamrock animatronics are using the Mimic program. This is heavily talked about in the Tales from the Pizzaplex books, but there's also proof for this in Security Breach itself. There is a whole section of the game where you enter an endoskeleton daycare. In this area, there are certain behaviors depicted on the doors. Good behavior gets a check mark, while bad behavior gets an X. This is where we're training the endoskeletons how to behave properly by showing them which behavior to mimic and which to not. It's an endo daycare because these endos are literally starting from scratch as if they're children and are being raised to be whatever character Fazbear wants them to be. This was confirmed in Help Wanted 2, where we got a whole minigame in the endo daycare. In this minigame, we are once again teaching a Glamrock endoskeleton the correct behavior to mimic. But at the beginning of this minigame, we hear a line that stuck out to me for a while now.
Welcome to the Playpen. Here, young animatronic endoskeletons learn how to associate with guests. Motivation chips encourage our youth to one day develop a personality and become the next Freddy, Chica, or TBD Pizzaplex star.
Motivation chips encourage our youth to one day develop a personality. What? When in any of the modern FNAF games have we ever heard of motivation chips? The game literally flat
It's a good point, but like, the whole point is that it's a new thing. Okay.
out tells us that these motivation chips are how we're able to teach the animatronics to develop a personality. That sounds exactly like what the Mimic program is supposed to be doing. To me, this one line is telling us that the Mimic program
The key difference is that the Mimic program is literally just saying like, mimic, just see, observe, and recreate. It has nothing to do about developing its own like personality or anything. That is because of Edwin's whole agony thing. But yeah,
is put into the Glamrock animatronics through a chip, and it's this chip that gives them the ability to be trained and taught to develop certain personalities to then become the next
Freddy, Chica, or TBD Pizzaplex star.
After discovering this, I then looked back to see if these chips have been mentioned anywhere else. After we learned from Scott that Security Breach's story was all over the place, I thought there would be no way they planned this chip thing from the beginning. Until I found this. In Security Breach, you can find a duffel bag message titled Chica Report, where it says, quote, Chica's personality chip.
Oh my god, John!
Has always been a bit quirky.
John.
But the new pizza-flavored Monty Mystery Mix slushy syrup has adverse effects on her programming. She has attacked patrons, employees, and staff for it. It is recommended that Monty Mystery Mix should be recalled before we're inundated with lawsuits. In this message, they straight up just call it a personality chip. Whether it's officially called a personality chip or a motivation chip doesn't really matter. The important thing
Are you gonna say this thing is what's in baby?
is that all the way back in Security Breach, there was mention of a singular chip that helps give each animatronic their personality. But that's not all. In the modern FNAF games, the Mimic has repeatedly taken the form of Helpy. In Security Breach Ruin, the Mimic speaks to Cassie through Helpy and successfully gets her to set it free by the end of the game. In Help Wanted 2,
you know who also appears as Helpy? Glitch Trap. I wonder what that means. Anyway,
you can see Helpy on the screen in the main
that on the screen right here. This is Glitch Trap.
hub area, and throughout the game he's giving us hints and encouraging us to progress. The thing is, progressing and beating the game normally gives you the bad ending, where Glitch Trap
Exactly. If you follow his instructions, the bad ending happens. This is exactly like FNAF 3. Oh my god, Glitch Bear, FNAF World. Wow. I've said this so many times. But yeah.
aka the Mimic Virus, wins. Helpy was purposely guiding us in the wrong direction, just like in Ruin. If you get
exactly like Glitch Bear in
hub,
FNAF
Helpy
World.
is now sitting on a beach on vacation because his job is done. The Mimic Virus won. As you probably know, you can get the good ending by going through Princess Quest and killing Glitch Trap once and for all. But if you try going back to the main hub after Glitch Trap is dead, Helpy isn't on vacation this time. He isn't even there anymore.
Exactly, because Helpy is Glitch Trap, and Glitch Trap, and Helpy is the Mimic, so Glitch Trap is the Mimic.
That's because Helpy was once again tied to the Mimic Virus. Now that Glitch Trap was gone, so was Helpy. So why does this matter? Well, this all actually ties into the first aid minigame, where we get to see Helpy in person. In a game where they solidify that the Mimic program represents itself as Helpy, while also reintroducing us to the idea of motivation or personality chips that seemingly house the Mimic program, I find it funny that if you open up Helpy's head in the first aid minigame, you can find a chip lodged in his brain. The fact that the chip is lodged in Helpy's brain makes me almost certain that this is our first look at the personality chip we've been hearing about for nearly 4 years now. But if you look closely at the chip, you might notice that we've actually seen this chip before.
Nope. That is not the same chip. Don't you dare. Alright, you're gonna do it anyway.
Night 5 of Sister Location, after punching the correct code into the keypad, a hatch opens on Baby's arm, revealing a little green chip. This chip looks exactly like the chip we find in Helpy's head. The same chip containing the Mimic program that might be being used in the Glamrocks can also be found in Baby. Granted, the chip we find in Helpy's head is a lot bigger than the one we find in Sister Location, but to me it is painfully obvious that they designed these chips to look similar. I just think that the one in Helpy's head is a newer version of the chip that's being mass-produced for the Glamrocks.
Okay.
These two chips might be the same chip, but just made decades apart from each other. Like we established earlier, Afton is in charge of the business side of things at Fazbear Entertainment.
Oh
Afton
my,
is,
where are you going with this?
Not a genius engineer like Henry. So if this is actually true, and Afton really did steal the Mimic program from Edwin, that would explain how he was able to create such advanced animatronics. So much so that even the board of Fazbear Entertainment was shocked at what Afton was able to achieve.
There's no doubting what you've achieved on a technical level. These are clearly state-of-the-art.
This might also explain why the Funtime animatronics are able to mimic voices, which we literally see happen in Sister Location.
Like I see,
You must let us inside the room.
Either way, I think the modern FNAF games are clearly trying to tell us that the Mimic program is being stored in some kind of chip. So I was curious if in Secret of the Mimic I could find any proof of this being the case. We learn in the Tales books that Edwin created the Mimic program by literally just coding it. We even learn what coding language he used, a combination of Pascal and C. He then uploaded this code to the Mimic's computer. Quote, once Edwin had constructed the robot, he had built the computer for it. This he did by stealing hardware from some of his abandoned projects. So no mention of a singular Mimic chip in the books, but what we learned from Secret of the Mimic is that what happens in the books is different from what happens in the games. In the games, the Mimic program isn't necessarily tied to the Mimic endoskeleton. Edwin was putting the Mimic program into every single one of his inventions as well.
Another smart toy from Murray.
I am always watching and learning.
Our main goal in Secret of the Mimic is to retrieve the Mimic blueprints for Fazbear Entertainment. And towards the end of the game, we actually manage to reach Edwin's office and gain access to the blueprints. But right before we download them onto our data diver, we can see that Edwin called the blueprints the Mimic blueprints, with the obvious reveal being that Mimic is actually an acronym. In true FNAF fashion, Secret of the Mimic gave us the answer to the MIX's acronym from Ruin, Mechanical X-Form Experimental Storage, but in return gave us a new mystery in the Mimic acronym. This is one of those things that feels nearly impossible.
Oh, bro, the camera.
Especially because no one would have ever guessed what MIX's ended up standing for. The fact that Mimic is an acronym is interesting because throughout the entire game, Edwin always called the Mimic endoskeleton M1.
I want to introduce you to someone.
He called the replacement M2.
We never once hear Edwin call it the Mimic endoskeleton. Since
yes,
these
we
blueprints
do.
aren't called the M1 blueprints, what if they're not blueprints for the physical Mimic, but for the Mimic chip? This would mean the C on the end of the acronym could stand for chip. I could also see it starting with something like Murray's and ending with integrated circuit, since integrated circuits are chips typically designed to store and run programs. So if these blueprints really are for the Mimic chip, how would Afton get his hands on them? Well, for that to happen, the escape ending of the game would have to be the canon one. In this ending, we willingly give the Mimic blueprints to M1 and go home. Afton would then gain access to M1 and the blueprints once he takes over Edwin's bunker. This ending feels like the canon one for a few reasons. First, it is absolutely in character for Arnold to want to finish the job and get out of there as soon as possible. Second, in the parachute ending, everything including Edwin's house and the bunker get destroyed. If this happened, it would be a lot harder for Afton to move in and build sister location. There's also the fact that Afton uses the same toys as Edwin for his kids, and if the whole place burned to the ground, those toys would be destroyed and unable to be reused. There's also the third ending.
Well, what if that ending didn't happen? Or maybe, yeah.
Where we defeat the Mimic, but
There's a few workarounds to that, but yeah.
that's unlikely to be canon since we know this isn't the end for the Mimic. Little did Arnold
That
know
too.
that giving the blueprints to M1 and driving away inadvertently might have given Afton access to the Mimic program, a giant underground bunker, and a familiar AI voice to greet workers who decide to visit.
Welcome to the first day of your exciting new career.
One thing that I want to make clear is that I do not think Scott had the Mimic in mind when making Sister Location. If this chip in Baby's arm really does contain the Mimic virus, that would mean that Scott and Steelwool went back and made that chip more important than it originally was. This is how FNAF always has worked. Scott builds on things that he puts in his previous games. As always, for any theory, I could be completely wrong about all of this, especially the idea that the Mimic blueprints are for the Mimic chip and not the endoskeleton. I do think, though, that the personality chip is something we've completely overlooked, and I'm excited to see if that goes anywhere. Either way, subscribe if you enjoyed, and thanks for watching.
All right. I liked it. Okay. I'm down for this. Now we'll go to the next one. This is the big one. This is the big one. The original. It's 34 minutes long. The original story.
I had a specific story for this in mind. Okay, for Security Breach, I really did, and it is very different than the one that got in the game. And I think a part of that is the way that I conveyed that to
I
Steel
think it
Wool.
has to do with William Afton, Vanessa, blah, 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 blah.
Hey, put this stuff in the game. Examine it as a producer.
Vanessa Afton.
I have no idea what any of this means. If he goes,
maybe, maybe, what if it might be Vanessa Afton? Like,
I
Greg,
had a specific
yeah.
story for this in mind.
Probably what it is.
For Security Breach, I really did. And it is very different than the one that got in the game. And I think a part of that is the way that I conveyed that to Steel Wool.
so as we're building the game, I get an email from Scott. It says, hey, put this stuff in the game. Examine it as a producer would do. And I said, I have no idea what any of this means. If he goes, yeah, put it in the game. Don't worry. I know.
See, but yeah,
Scott caught
you can't. Whoa, John, you can't. You look like young. But you can't. See, Scott, you can't like gatekeep that hard. Oh, actually, I do understand why he gatekeeps like that. He trusts his fans, but like, I get that you trust the fans to know what it means, but the issue is that the people that are making your game also need to know what it means. Even if you just say, yeah, do it, they're still like, they're gonna do what game developers and producers do, which is try and make it make sense. But rookie mistakes.
is super secretive when it comes to the lore of Five Nights at Freddy's, and in order to keep everything a secret, he didn't tell Steel Wool the story of Security Breach. Instead, he only gave them pieces of the story he was trying to tell.
I was trying to tell Steel Wool to do specific things throughout the game, have specific characters do certain things, meanwhile not telling them what the story plot was.
Because of this, Steel Wool, in an effort to flesh out the game, started filling in the blanks themselves.
That
Exactly. That was the issue.
didn't work out very well because they got all of these pieces and they thought it was their job to connect them in a way
You should have told him that it wasn't. Scott, communicate, please.
that made sense.
So what we got on launch day was a game that featured the pieces of Scott's original story and the story that Steel Wool created to fill in the blanks.
And so really what you ended up having were the same pieces, but telling completely different stories.
This whole situation is fascinating to me, so I spent the last few months researching and analyzing Security Breach in order to find Scott's pieces of the game, all in an effort to figure out Scott's original story for Security Breach. Let's get started. The first thing we need to do is find the pieces of Security Breach that belong to Scott, and there's actually a couple we already know about. Right before Security Breach released in December of 2021,
Burn Trap. When I first found you. He's going to mention the trailers.
Dawko did an interview with Steel Wool Studios where J-Top
Schematics.
and Ray revealed that most of the arcade skins in the game came from Scott and his team.
One thing that you've already called out, like in videos, so far, is noticing the arcade skins in the background.
Yes.
There are a lot.
There's a lot.
And the majority of them came from Scott. And he's got a team of artists, right?
This is important because not only do the arcade machines have references
There's there's Fredbear.
to every corner of the FNAF franchise, a lot of them also show GGY at the top of the leaderboards. This ends up being a major part of the story that we will come back to later. The next piece of Scott's original
So Gregory was always going to be patient 46.
story actually comes from Scott himself. In the interview with Dawko, Scott revealed that in his version of the story, Burn Trap was never supposed to move.
When it comes to Burn Trap, originally
Burn Trap was never supposed to move.
He was supposed to just be.
It has to be a William Afton hallucination because Gregory is Vanessa's daughter, and then it's Vanessa, Good Trap and Gregory. Oh my God!
Walking past the machinery, you might be able to peek in between two things and see him in the corner or propped up against a wall, almost like some kind of decaying movie prop.
This is one of many things that Scott revealed in this interview, so I'll be referring back to this interview throughout the video. The next piece of Scott's original story that I'm going to include are the Tales from the Pizzaplex books. While I don't think they're in the same continuity as the games, I do think Scott was using them to point us in the right direction after Security Breach. So I think it's fair to use them at least as supporting evidence. So far, we have a decent amount of pieces, but those ones were actually the easy ones for me to figure out. These next pieces are definitely the biggest ones and required a lot more research. In my hunt to figure out what parts of Security Breach belong to Scott, my biggest breakthrough came from a website called Voices.com. If you don't know already, back when Scott was making the FNAF games on his own, he used Voices.com to find and hire voice actors. This is how he found most, if not all, of the voice actors for his games, including for Security Breach. This is interesting because even though Scott was no longer making the games, he still personally chose and worked with some of the voice actors for Security Breach. I say some because in my research I found that out of all of the voice actors in Security Breach, Scott himself only hired 3 of them using Voices.com. So by figuring out what voice actors Scott personally worked with, we can figure out what parts of the story likely belong to him. According to Voices.com, the first voice actor that Scott hired for Security Breach was Matthew Curtis. And what's interesting about this is that
he plays Burntrap and William Afton.
Matthew's voice doesn't even show up in the game. It shows up in the trailer for the game. Matthew was hired around January 28th, 2021, 1 month before the first gameplay trailer for Security Breach. In this trailer, we heard this voice for the first time.
When I first found you, you were nothing.
You will do as I say. You will bring me what I want.
This was the first and the last time we heard from this character, and it turns out that even Matthew himself had no idea what character he was voicing. When a fan asked him if the character was William Afton, he responded, "Honestly, I don't know. I was never given a character name, but was told to expect more to do as the character in the future. It never panned out." This is yet another example of how secretive Scott was being about the story. Judging by Scott's review on Matthew's page saying, "Great working with Matthew, super fast turnaround," I am fully convinced that all of the voice lines in this trailer were written by Scott. And on top of that, even the style of this trailer is very similar to how Scott used to make his trailers back in the day.
Scott Trainer!
It's just like an old FNAF trailer, I'm gonna cry. It's just like an old FNAF trailer! In my opinion, it seems like Scott was heavily involved in the making of this trailer, but to be fair, Matthew isn't the only one speaking in the trailer. We also get some lines from Vanessa, voiced by Heather Masters.
Gregory, we can get you out of here. You and me together.
Even though
Matthew Curtis, who voices William, Heather Masters, who voices Baby, Burntrap, Vanessa Afton. Yeah, okay. All right, John. So Vanessa Afton was Scott's intent? You think so? Let's see.
there's no proof that Heather was also hired using Voices.com, she's already been working with Scott for years at this point, so I don't think he would need to use Voices.com to hire her. So I think it's safe to assume that if Matthew's lines were written by Scott, Heather's lines probably were too. So the first gameplay trailer of Security Breach is officially deemed a Scott piece of the story, but that's not all. We still have 2 voice actors left that were hired by Scott using Voices.com, and they are easily the most important. According to Voices.com, the final 2 voice actors that Scott hired for Security Breach were Leah Voicey and Penny Balfour.
Oh, snap. Uh-oh. Okay, wow, I didn't know that. See?
2 of the therapists from the retro CDs.
Yep. No. No, 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 no.
As you probably know, the therapy CDs are the most lore-filled part of the game. So the fact that they could have...
Scott, why would you betray me like this?
Been 100% written by Scott would be a huge reveal, so I needed to make sure that I was right about this. Scott could have easily hired and worked with all of the voice actors for Security Breach, and only used voices.com to find some of them. So, in order to figure this out, I watched every single interview, panel, and Q&A from every voice actor in Security Breach to learn who hired them and who they specifically worked with. Scott.
How the hell did you do that? Okay, hold on. Oh, Jesus. It is hot as hell. No. All right. You know what? I'm hungry. I'm gonna go get food real quick. I'll be right back, chat. Okay, yeah, I'm back. I got the food. Leave off. Okay. John. All right, we're gonna backtrack a little bit.
FNAF trailer! In my opinion, it seems like Scott was heavily involved in the making of this trailer, but to be fair, Matthew isn't the only one speaking in the trailer. We also get some lines from Vanessa, voiced by Heather Masters.
Gregory, we can get you out of here. You and me together.
Even though there's no proof that Heather was also hired using Voices.com, she's already been working with Scott for years at this point, so I don't think he would need to use Voices.com to hire her. So I think it's safe to assume that if Matthew's lines were written by Scott, Heather's lines probably were too. So the first gameplay trailer of Security Breach is officially deemed a Scott piece of the story, but that's not all. We still have 2 voice actors left that were hired by Scott using Voices.com, and they are easily the most important.
The therapist
According to
tapes.
Voices.com, the final 2 voice actors that Scott hired for Security Breach were Leah Voicey and Penny Balfour, 2 of the therapists from the retro CDs. As you probably know, the therapy CDs are the most lore-filled part of the game, so the fact that they could have been 100% written by Scott would be a huge reveal. So I needed to make sure that I was right about this. Scott could have easily hired and worked with all of the voice actors for Security Breach, and only used Voices.com to find some of them. So, in order to figure this out, I watched every single interview, panel, and Q&A from every voice actor in Security Breach to learn who hired them and who they specifically worked with. Scott.
Gotta give this dude credit. He puts in the work.
Or Steel Wool. Here's what I found.
What is happening in the
Artist
Discord,
voices
bro?
Gregory Vanny.
What? Oh, yeah. Ash, Tails. Yeah. I get it.
And Roxy has mentioned being hired by Steel Wool and also working directly with Steel Wool.
What? What's the difference?
Met somebody who ended up then later coming on board with Steel Wool Studios. He asked me to audition for Roxanne and Gregory.
It's really cool working with the Steel Wool guys because it's easy to be comfortable working with them.
Yeah.
You know, you met them. Like,
yeah,
they're
I know.
just,
Steel Wool
like,
are
J-Top,
amazing.
Ryan.
The same goes for Cameron Miller, who voices Monty.
I was doing things on stage. My director is actually married to one of the producers at Steel Wool. He goes, well, actually, we have this game if you want to audition for it.
When it comes to Kellen Goff, who voices Glamrock Freddy and Sun and Moon, things are slightly different. Kellen has stated that Scott personally hired him to voice Glamrock Freddy, but after he got the job, Scott sent him to work directly with Steel Wool.
Then I see this alligator. Maybe I could ask Scott if he's holding auditions for that one. He responded saying, actually, I had something else in mind for you. Would you like to read for Freddy? And I sent over what would be the first words of Glamrock Freddy, and he said, yep, that's it. I'm going to connect you with the Steel Wool guys.
I couldn't find any information about Heather Masters, who voices Vanessa and Glamrock Chica, but since she's also a veteran of the series, I think it's safe to assume she went through the same thing as Kellen.
Really?
And who they spent.
It's really cool working with the Steel Wool guys because it's easy to be comfortable working with them.
Yeah.
You know, you met them. Like,
Yeah, I
they're
know.
just,
Steel Wool
like,
are
J-Top,
amazing.
Brian.
The same goes for Cameron Miller, who voices Monty.
I was doing things on stage. My director is actually married to one of the producers at Steel Wool. He goes, well, actually, we have this game if you want to audition for it.
When it comes to Kellen Goff, who voices Glamrock Freddy and Sun and Moon, things are slightly different. Kellen has stated that Scott personally hired him to voice Glamrock Freddy, but after he got the job, Scott sent him to work directly with Steel Wool.
Then I see this alligator. Maybe I could ask Scott if he's holding auditions for that one. He responded saying, actually, I had something else in mind for you. Would you like to read for Freddy? And I sent over what would be the first words of Glamrock Freddy, and he said, yep, that's it. I'm going to connect you with the Steel Wool guys.
I couldn't find any information about Heather Masters, who voices Vanessa in Glam.
Wait, what?
He goes, well, actually, we have this game if you want to audition for it.
When it comes to Kellen Goff, who voices Glamrock Freddy and Sun and Moon, things are slightly different. Kellen has stated that Scott personally hired him to voice Glamrock Freddy, but after he got the job, Scott sent him to work directly with Steel Wool.
Then I see this alligator. Maybe I could ask Scott if he's holding auditions for that one. He responded saying, actually, I had something else in mind for you. Would you like to read for Freddy? And I sent over what would be the first words of Glamrock Freddy, and he said, yep, that's it. I'm going to connect you with the Steel Wool guys.
I couldn't find any information about Heather Masters, who voices Vanessa in Glamrock Chica, but since she's also a veteran of the series, I think it's safe to assume she went through the same thing as Kellen. Hired on by Scott, but then was sent to work with Steel Wool. So basically, any line in the game that came from the Glamrocks, daycare attendant, Vanessa, Vanny, or Gregory were likely for the most part not entirely written by Scott, since all of the voice actors for these characters recorded their lines directly with Steel Wool. That then leaves Leah Voicey and Penny Balfour from the Therapy CDs. Maybe Scott did the same thing with them as he did with Kellen, hired them on and then sent them to work with Steel Wool to record their lines. But that's not the case, because after scrolling
okay.
Through 5 years worth of reviews on Leah Voicey's profile, I found a review left by Scott where he said Leah did great and nailed it on the first take. This heavily implies that he was the one that worked directly with Leah and Penny on the Therapy CDs. This is in addition to Scott saying Matthew Curtis had a super fast turnaround and Penny Balfour was a pleasure to work with. I am fully convinced that the Therapy CDs were written by Scott and are a piece of his original story for Security Breach. What's funny about this is that the Therapy CDs were a huge reason Security Breach was so confusing, but now with this new information, we know why it was so.
I feel like it was a little more than that. But you sure? No, let's go. Let's
But
go.
since she's also a veteran of the series, I think it's safe to assume she went through the same thing as Kellen. Hired on by Scott, but then was sent to work with Steel Wool. So basically, any line in the game that came from the Glamrocks, daycare attendant, Vanessa, Vanny, or Gregory were likely for the most part not entirely written by Scott, since all of the voice actors for these characters recorded their lines directly with Steel Wool. That then leaves Leah Voicey and Penny Balfour from the Therapy CDs. Maybe Scott did the same thing with them as he did with Kellen, hired them on and then sent them to work with Steel Wool to record their lines. But that's not the case, because after scrolling through 5 years worth of reviews on Leah Voicey's profile, I found a review left by Scott where he said Leah did great and nailed it on the first take.
On the first, no way. There's no way you can believe that though.
Through 5 years worth of reviews on Leah Voicey's profile, I found a review left by Scott where he said Leah did great and nailed it on the first take.
Is that important?
This heavily implies that he was the one that worked directly with Leah and Penny on the Therapy CDs. This is in addition to Scott saying Matthew Curtis had a super fast turnaround and Penny Balfour was a pleasure to work with. I am fully convinced that the Therapy CDs were written by Scott and are a piece of his original story for Security Breach. What's funny about this is that the Therapy CDs were a huge reason Security Breach was so confusing, but now with this new information, we know why it was so confusing. When the game first came out, we all played through it normally and got all of the endings. This was, for the most part, the Steel Wool portion of the
Hold on. I keep getting sidetracked. Jesus.
in Security Breach to learn who hired them and who they specifically worked with, Scott or Steel Wool. Here's what I found. Martis Fedek, who voices Gregory, Vanny, and Roxy, has mentioned being hired by Steel Wool and also working directly with Steel Wool.
I met somebody who ended up then later.
Oh, nah. Oh, nah. That's funny. Oh, nah. That's funny.
Coming on board with Steel Wool Studios, he asked me to audition for Roxanne and Gregory.
It's really cool working with the Steel Wool guys because it's easy to be comfortable working with them.
Yeah.
You know, you've met them. Like,
Yeah, I know.
just,
Steel Wool
like,
are
they talk
amazing.
Ryan.
The same goes for Cameron Miller, who voices Monty.
I was doing things on stage. My director is actually married to one of the producers at Steel Wool. He goes, well, actually, we have this game if you want to audition for it.
When it comes to Kellen Goff, who voices Glamrock Freddy and Sun and Moon, things are slightly different. Kellen has stated that Scott personally hired him to voice Glamrock Freddy, but after he got the job, Scott sent him to work directly with Steel Wool.
Then I see this alligator. Maybe I could ask Scott if he's holding auditions for that one. He responded saying, actually, I had something else in mind for you. Would you like to read for Freddy? And I sent over what would be the first words of Glamrock Freddy, and he said, yep, that's it. I'm going to connect you with the Steel Wool guys.
I couldn't find any information about Heather Masters, who voices Vanessa in Glamrock Chica, but since she's also a veteran of the series, I think it's safe to assume she went through the same thing as Kellen. Hired on by Scott, but then was sent to work with Steel Wool. So basically, any line in the game that came from the Glamrocks,
How are you both losing to one person? Anyways.
daycare attendant, Vanessa, Vanny, or Gregory were likely for the most part not entirely written by Scott, since all of the voice actors for these characters recorded their lines directly with Steel Wool. That then leaves Leah Voicey and Penny Balfour from the Therapy CDs. Maybe Scott did the same thing with them as he did with Kellen, hired them on and then sent them to work with Steel Wool to record their lines. But
here's the thing though, but like why does it matter if he hired them?
That's not the case, because after scrolling through 5 years worth of reviews on Leah Voicey's profile, I found a review left by Scott where he said Leah did great and nailed it on the first take. This heavily implies that he was the one that worked directly with Leah and Penny on the Therapy CDs. This is in addition to Scott saying Matthew Curtis had a super fast turnaround and Penny Balfour was a pleasure to work with. I am fully convinced that the Therapy CDs were written by Scott and are a piece of his original story for Security Breach. What's funny about this is that the Therapy CDs were a huge reason Security
My mic was off the whole time.
Breach was so confusing, but now with this new information,
That is insane. Okay, so yeah, you get the point, chat. The therapy tapes, page 46, blah, 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 blah. Wow.
turnaround and Penny Balfour was a
Oh, the mic was off.
I'm convinced that the Therapy CDs were written by Scott and are a piece of his original story for Security Breach. What's funny about this is that the Therapy CDs were a huge reason Security Breach was so confusing, but now with this new information, we know why it was so confusing. When the game first came out, we all played through it normally and got all of the endings. This was, for the most part, the Steel Wool portion of the game. Every voice line you heard was recorded with Steel Wool in the room, and most of the story beats you experienced were likely written by Steel Wool as well. It wasn't until you took that extra step at the end of the game to find and listen to the CDs that the story started to get confusing. This is the moment Scott's original story started clashing with Steel Wool's. So now that we have all of Scott's pieces of the game, let's figure out the story he was trying to tell. The main thing I learned while piecing this together is that the Therapy CDs are the foundation of Scott's story. Every single Scott piece of the game ties back into those CDs in some way, and Here's how. There
Vanessa
are 16 CDs, with 8
Afton.
of them being therapy sessions with Vanessa, and the other 8 being therapy sessions with Gregory. In Vanessa's CDs, there's really only 2 big topics they touch on: Vanessa's traumatic childhood and a conversation she's been having with someone on her work computer. Let's start with her childhood. We learned that Vanessa has a dad named Bill, and when the therapist brings him up, Vanessa immediately gets uncomfortable.
I feel like I know your dad, too. Bill, right?
Oh my god.
I'm sorry, what did you say?
I try to do what I'm supposed to do.
We then learn about how Vanessa was manipulated by her dad when she was young.
I'm talking about the custody battle between your mum and your dad. Your dad didn't play fair, did he? He used to make your mum look bad in court. I suppose I don't need you to tell me it felt bad to have a parent scare you into saying things that weren't true. He manipulated you. It wasn't your fault.
Vanessa's dad forced her to lie about her mom in court so he could maintain custody of her. Vanessa's backstory is
That happened to Elizabeth. That happened to Elizabeth. But yeah.
something people didn't really talk about for a while after the game came out. And this is because with her dad being named Bill, which is short for William, him being pure evil and manipulating his kid, and Vanessa's name in FNAF AR being Vanessa A, it seems that Vanessa might actually be an Afton. This was almost immediately written off by people because Vanessa didn't really exist in the story until now. As far as we knew, Afton only had 3 kids, Michael, Elizabeth, and the crying child. But then, 2 years after Security Breach, the FNAF
Little editing mistake there.
movie came out, featuring a character named Vanessa who looks exactly like Vanessa in the
Here's the thing though, the movie did this because in the game she's possessed by Glitchtrap, who is mimicking William. That's the parallel there.
games and is the daughter of William Afton. But it doesn't stop there. We get another therapy CD about Vanessa's dad, where the therapist gives her advice on how to deal with her trauma.
Are you talking about your dad? You can't just ignore an issue. You have to face your memory of the experiences and process them so you can let it go. So
Nightmares.
you don't get triggered anymore.
The nightmares in the second movie. Oh my god.
The therapist tells her to face the memory of her traumatic experiences with her dad so she can process them.
What happens
and
in the
let
second
them
movie,
go.
John?
This is the exact same advice Vanessa is given in the FNAF 2 movie.
You remember how I would use my dreams to confront what happened with Garrett? It really helped me a lot. I think it can help you too.
You have to face your memory of the experiences and process them so you can let it go.
I don't think that's a good idea.
I don't like doing that.
She then literally faces the traumatic memories with her dad head on in an effort to overcome them. In the games, we learn that Vanessa's dad is extremely possessive of her, with him making her lie
Oh,
in court
John,
so he can
John.
maintain custody of her. This extremely possessive trait is also something we see from Afton in the movies.
You will always be mine. You shall always be mine.
This is where the first piece of Scott's original story comes into play, and it's something he said in his interview with Dawko. Scott revealed that he told Steelwool to put specific items in specific places.
I was trying to tell Steelwool to do specific things throughout the game. Put specific items in specific places. Have specific characters do certain things.
Well, when it comes to putting specific items in specific places, the only Scott piece of the game that's put in a very specific place are the therapy CDs, which were put in the Afton's living room from sister location. Scott goes on to say this.
In my head, I was thinking, okay, when people find this, they will connect this to this to this, and it will all be revealed.
Maybe he thought
There it
when
is,
we
John.
found the Afton's living room, we'd connect it to the CDs and therefore connect Vanessa and her dad, William, to the Aftons. When Dawko interviewed Steelwool, he asked them if there would be any Easter eggs in the game, in which Ray McCaffrey responded,
"Will there be any Easter eggs in Security Breach?"
As we're building the game, I get an email from Scott. It says, "Hey, put this stuff in the game. Examine it as a producer would do." And I say, "I have no idea what any of this means." He goes, "Yeah, put it in the game. Don't worry. I know."
To me, it sounds like he's talking about the Afton's living room from sister location and the therapy CDs. Dawko specifically asked about Easter eggs, and the Afton living room is a huge Easter egg in the game. But at the same time, the therapy CDs in that room were likely something sent to them by Scott with no explanation.
I have no idea what any of this means. He goes, "Yeah, put it in the game."
The next huge piece of Scott's original story involves the second topic in Vanessa's therapy CDs, the conversation she's having with someone on her work computer. These conversations are brought up 3 separate times by 3 separate therapists. This is because every time a therapist brings up the conversations, they're swapped out.
Killed by Gregory.
Your online history has revealed that you've spent quite a bit of time with someone in an encrypted conversation. Hi, go ahead, sit down.
I don't know you. What happened to...
Oh, we'll get to know each other in no time.
This happens 4 times over the 16 CDs, totaling 5 different therapists. The first 3 voiced by Michelle Amos, and the final 2 voiced by Leah Voicey and Penny Balfour. The therapists tell Vanessa that whoever she's talking to has hacked into her personal files.
This person who's been sending you messages has been hacking into your personal files too. These are the same files I have here. This person who is contacting you knows a lot about you.
They also tell Vanessa that it looks like this person is manipulating her.
The messages you're getting seem very manipulative in nature.
With that in mind, let's move on to Gregory's therapy CDs. And the thing about Gregory's is that he never actually says anything out loud in any of his 8 CDs.
So you're not talking to me again today. This isn't all that productive, you know.
The only reason we know that these belong to Gregory is because Scott confirmed it in the Tales from the Pizzaplex books. There's also multiple moments in the CDs where the therapist implies that they're talking to a child.
You don't want me to get in trouble, do you? I could be put in the corner for a timeout. Yeah, you think that's funny, huh?
But there's also another way I think Scott intended for us to figure this out. And that's through the next piece of Scott's story, the arcade skins he gave to Steel Wool. Like we established earlier, most of the arcade skins for the game came from Scott and his artists. And one thing about the arcade machines is that Gregory is at the top of the leaderboard on a lot of them. This is something we all overlooked until the story GGY from the Tales books was released. In the story GGY, we learned that Gregory is hacking into the arcade machines at the Pizzaplex in order to get the highest scores. And wouldn't you know, one of the main things we learn about Patient 46 is that they're an extremely skilled hacker.
I'm surprised by your knowledge of computers. You're something of a phenom. Do you know what that word means?
It's like a hacker.
You have unusual skill, like a hacker.
Since Patient 46 never speaks in the therapy CDs, Scott maybe thought we'd figure out their identity by learning that Patient 46 is a hacker, and then connecting that to Gregory's absurdly high scores on the arcade machines. Even though it definitely seems far-fetched, I honestly can't think of any other reason Scott would put Gregory at the top of the leaderboards. But anyways, back to Gregory's therapy CDs. After revealing that Gregory is a hacker, the therapist brings up an encrypted conversation that Gregory is having with someone.
They say you were in communication with someone. The texts say it looked to them like it was an attempt to manipulate you.
Then the therapist reveals that Gregory wasn't the one being manipulated in these conversations, he was the one doing the manipulating.
Thing is, when I read the communications, I get something different out of them. I don't think you're being manipulated here. I think you're the one doing the manipulating.
So we have Vanessa, who's being manipulated by someone in an encrypted conversation, and then we have Gregory, who is manipulating someone in an encrypted conversation. This is Scott clearly telling us that Gregory is the one communicating with and manipulating Vanessa. Like I said earlier, every time a therapist brought up these encrypted conversations,
they would get
off. And in the Tales books, Scott revealed that this was because of Gregory. Gregory would lure each therapist to the Pizzaplex to have them killed. This is something that Scott heavily hinted towards in the therapy CDs as well. In the therapy CDs, Gregory is being told that the therapists are showing up dead, and he doesn't care.
Apparently, all 3 of your former therapists have gone missing. One of them was found dead. That doesn't seem to upset you. Well, then I guess I'll go ahead and tell you that the woman's body was pretty messed up. That doesn't bother you either?
This screams to me that Gregory was fully under the control of Glitchtrap, and this was basically confirmed in the books as well. Gregory's nickname in the books is literally the wizard's most favored apprentice. So not only is he under the control of Glitchtrap, he's talking to and manipulating Vanessa.
Oh my god.
Of Glitchtrap. Scott brings up these conversations so many times in the therapy CDs, so they must be important. Which leads into our next question.
What were the conversations?
What were Gregory and Vanessa talking about in these conversations? Well, what if I told you that we've already heard a piece of these conversations
in FNAF AR
7 years ago? On October 23rd, 2019, we got the Curse of Dreadbear
DLC. Oh my
DLC,
god.
Look at the Vanny mask, and if you put it on while at the prize
have you
counter,
selected one? I have. Oh my God,
conversation. In
dude.
this conversation, she talks about the Vanny costume that she's creating.
Yes, I hear you. There's no miscommunication. I understand. No, no one suspects anything. Yes, I have it. I made it myself. I think you would like it.
This is the conversation that's brought up multiple times in the therapy CDs where Gregory is manipulating Vanessa. I know this because Vanessa is also confronted about this Vanny costume in the therapy CDs. But once that happens, she says this.
It looks like you were shopping for a costume. What was that? Did you say the costume is a secret?
I can't talk about this. He said he would always be watching. He could be here, or there, or anywhere in between.
On top of all of that, after doing a little bit of research, I found that the voice actor for these specific lines from Help Wanted, Jesse Tang, was also hired by and worked directly with Scott, just like the therapists in the CDs. With him saying Jessica was terrific, she took direction well, and turnaround was very fast. So the idea that this conversation from Help Wanted and the therapy CDs are connected would make sense considering they were both directly written by Scott. These conversations—
Yes, but well, here, let's go back. Wait, no, not that far, not that far.
These specific lines from Help Wanted—
Look.
Here, or there, or anywhere in between.
On top of all of that, after doing a little bit of research, I found that the voice actor for these specific lines from Help Wanted, Jesse Tang, was also hired by and worked directly with Scott.
Wow.
Just like the therapists in the CDs.
Okay.
With him saying Jessica was terrific, she took direction well, and turnaround
Okay,
was very
John.
fast.
Okay,
So
I get
the
it, I
idea
get it, I
that
get
this
it.
conversation from Help Wanted and the therapy CDs are connected would make sense considering they were both directly written by Scott. These conversations were a huge part of Scott's original story, but it doesn't stop there. There's another piece of security breach that I believe belongs to Scott that we haven't talked about yet. In the therapy CDs, Gregory takes an ink blot test.
I saw some ink blot test results in your file.
Where could he be going with this?
You want to do one?
Gregory then takes the ink blot and says this.
How about this one?
A rabbit?
What do you see? You think it's a mask? Like
Oh my God.
Disguises let you be sort of invisible, don't they? You can
Holy
get away with almost
shit.
anything when you're invisible, can't you? Yeah. You like that idea?
Not only does Gregory see a mask, he specifically added the line, disguises let you be sort of invisible. You can get away with almost anything when you're invisible. Why would Scott include this? Because it directly connects to one of the only times we see Vanny in Security Breach.
What was that?
That is a fountain.
Not the fountain. You didn't see the dancing rabbit lady right in front of us?
No, I did not.
Vanny is literally invisible when she's wearing the Vanny mask.
Yes, I have it. I think you would like it.
You like the idea of being disguised? You can get away with almost anything when you're invisible, can't you?
This is something Scott doubled down on in Ruin. Whenever Cassie puts on the Vanny mask, she literally becomes invisible to the animatronics. And for those people who, rightfully so, say that the Vanny mask and the Vanny costume look completely different, Scott and Steelwool included this scene in Ruin to clear that up.
It's Gregory. Hey, she's wearing my mask.
This was very clearly shoehorned into the game to answer the question of, is the Vanny mask and the Vanny costume the same thing? And it turns out that even though they look different, they are the same thing. Like we talked about earlier, Scott told Steelwool to put specific items in specific places in Security Breach, but he also told them to do specific things throughout the game and have specific characters do certain things. I think this is what he was talking about. Scott telling Steelwool to put this specific scene in the game makes sense, considering it directly links to what he wrote in the therapy CDs. So now that we know that Gregory was fully under the control of Glitchtrap, a lot of pieces start falling into place. Gregory the hacker is the one who hacked into Vanessa's personal files.
It means you have unusual skill, like a hacker. This person who's been sending you messages has been hacking into your personal files too.
He did this to keep tabs on Vanessa's sessions, to make sure that she's not saying too much about their conversations. We also learned in the CDs that Gregory completely lied about having a traumatic childhood.
None of what you said in your file about your parents was true. The truth is, you had great parents, a great childhood. Why did you lie?
I think he lied about his past so he could have a reason to meet with the therapist. He's actually a normal kid that had a great childhood, but by pretending he has childhood trauma, he's able to get in with the same therapist as Vanessa. And if he finds out that Vanessa told him too much, he'd kill them off.
Killed him off.
In Vanessa's last 2 therapy tapes, we
In
learn that
GTA.
she's about to be transferred to work at the Pizzaplex.
I understand you'll be transferring to a different location soon.
After Vanessa was transferred, we learned that Gregory was spotted talking to Vanny at the Pizzaplex.
I have this still shot the text pulled from the security footage that recorded you in the Pizzaplex. You're talking to someone or something. What are those things? They almost look like rabbit ears.
After only speaking through encrypted conversations, Vanessa and Gregory are now at the Pizzaplex talking in person. This was obviously supposed to be the big twist of the game. Gregory wasn't this random kid who just so happened to get trapped in the Pizzaplex. He was working with Vanny the whole time. And Scott actually had this planned since the beginning. Earlier, we figured out that Scott personally hired and worked with the voice actors for the first gameplay trailer for Security Breach. And you can
You will
hear
bring me what I want.
Trap
Both
say
of you.
this.
He says both of you. He says both of you. Yep, both of you.
The both of you line was always confusing, but knowing what we know now, both of you was referencing Vanessa and Gregory, who are both under the control of Glitchtrap. Gregory being under the control of Glitchtrap is obviously a big twist, but there's another piece of Scott's original story that I believe was going to be a bigger twist. In Help Wanted, one of the only lines of dialogue that Glitchtrap has is this. This is him repeating a line that was said by Tape Girl.
Hello? Can you hear me?
This led people to believe that Scott had some version of the Mimic AI in mind since Help Wanted, and I think that's entirely possible, considering what we learned from the therapy CDs. There's one line from the therapy CDs that I haven't seen many people talk about, and it's something the therapist says to Gregory.
Is it the electronics you like? I saw in your file that you have developed software programs that talk to you and repeat phrases, right? The program
Talk to you and repeat phrases? Bro.
What? Gregory has developed software programs that talk to him
and repeat phrases. Oh my god.
Literally, it seems to be heavily implying that Gregory created some version of what we now know as the Mimic AI. Obviously, this did not end up being the case because we have Edwin, but when Scott originally wrote these CDs, could that have been the plan? It's definitely not impossible, especially since Scott has explored this concept before. What we've learned over the years is that sometimes Scott will introduce a concept in a previous book or game, and then years later reuse it for something else. For example, the entire concept and story of the Mimic was explored by Scott before FNAF even existed, in Chipper and Son's Lumber Co. Quote, "There comes a time when all a beaver's rage and sorrow are poured into something,
my
and it
god,
becomes stronger than himself." It reminds me of the time that I built an exact duplicate of myself with fur and everything, but the silly thing didn't realize that it was a lumber bot and tried to take over the place. I had to whack it with a shovel and bury it. Can you imagine a robot thinking he's the real thing? Bleep bloop.
Oh my
Obviously,
god, Scott.
has themes and story ideas that he's been fascinated by for a long time, including the idea of a rogue AI program. And the themes surrounding Gregory are no exception to that. The concept of a child prodigy creating an AI that was built to talk and repeat phrases is another idea Scott has explored before. In the Silver Eyes trilogy, Charlie is a child prodigy who invents an AI that talks to itself and learns on its own. She put the AI into 2 endoskeleton heads that repeat, hello, you, I, you are, am I? When Charlie's friend asks her what she's programming them to do, she responds, I'm not exactly programming them to do anything. I'm helping them to learn on their own. This is the one and only time this is brought up in the entire book series, which makes me think that this was Scott testing out the idea of an extremely talented kid creating a rogue AI program. Although he never expanded upon it in the Silver Eyes, I think he could have been picking it back up with Gregory. But there's one detail that could make or break this whole explanation. If
Oh,
Gregory
really?
was already under the control of Glitchtrap when he made the program, Glitchtrap
Yeah.
obviously made him create it, and I think that probably
Yeah.
is the case. The therapist says that while Gregory was talking to the program, it sounded like someone started responding to him.
When I study this, it sounds like there is someone else responding to you. Who is it?
I think this program was how he would communicate with Glitchtrap or Vanessa. Although that line about Gregory creating essentially the mimic AI is super weird. And until we get an explanation, those are the two possible ways I think it could be interpreted. Now it's time to talk about arguably the biggest thing we learned about Scott's original story. Burntrap was never supposed to move, and based on what Scott is saying, it seems like he was almost supposed to be an Easter egg. Like if you look between two objects, you'll see Burntrap just chilling in the corner. Scott said that Burntrap did have a specific purpose, but he decided not to share it.
And you never fully understood what his purpose was. And he had a very specific purpose. And I'm not going to say what that purpose was, but realistically, he never moved.
So in order to understand what Burntrap is, we first need to understand what Glitchtrap is. There is a lot of debate about if Glitchtrap is the actual spirit of William Afton, or if it's just the mimic program mimicking William Afton. And I think it's a little bit of both. In the Doco interview, Scott actually shared his thoughts on Glitchtrap
William's
by
agony.
saying,
I love the character, but I can't help my inclinations to lean sci-fi. So anything that involves possession of AI or possession of machines or circuitry, that I love that sort of thing. So I love the idea of Glitchtrap.
I think Scott was being pretty clear when he said that Glitchtrap is the result of a spirit possessing an AI program.
Yeah,
And
William's
I think
spirit.
that AI is the mimic program, and the spirit possessing it is William Afton. In Help Wanted, it's very clear that Glitchtrap wanted out of the VR game.
It wants to escape.
I always
through
come
someone.
back.
Someone plugged into this game. That's you now.
He wanted to re-enter the physical world, and at the time, his only way of doing that was through Vanessa. But now that Glitchtrap was successfully controlling Vanessa, he had a new goal, and this goal can be heard in Scott's security breach trailer.
Do as I say, you will bring me what I want.
And if you fail me, then you will. Both of you burn!
He wants Vanessa and Gregory to bring him something, and I think that
That something is his body. Or they go to hell.
something is what we see at the end of the trailer.
There is more going on here than you realize.
The spring Bonnie suit.
Glitchtrap wants a physical body to inhabit, but not just any physical body, his body. The Pizzaplex just so happens to be built on top of the FNAF 6 pizzeria, where Afton's corpse lies. This shot with the purple lighting and everything feels like it's screaming at us that Afton is back. I genuinely think Burntrap was, and maybe still is, actually William Afton's corpse. And the reason we were supposed to see glimpses of him propped up against a wall and lifeless is because Vanessa hasn't put Glitchtrap into it yet. Seeing a lifeless Burntrap as an Easter egg might have acted as a hint towards what Vanessa was up to at the Pizzaplex.
There is more going on here than you realize.
This is what I think Scott's original idea for Burntrap was. Is it still true? I honestly think so, and that's because of what we see in Help Wanted 2. In one of the endings, we see Glitchtrap's hand coming out of the charging pod in the exact same way Burntrap's did, obviously connecting Glitchtrap to Burntrap. And then in the Princess Quest ending, a giant Vanny crushes Glitchtrap in her hands. Help Wanted 2 kind of felt like the we're sorry for bringing Afton back again, so let's get rid of him real quick game. In my interview with Steelwolf Studios, J-Top made it very clear that this was the end for Glitchtrap.
This is, you know, the end of Glitchtrap.
So it is the end of Glitchtrap. Squished. Gone.
Yep. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. This really feels like them moving on from the William Afton part of Glitchtrap, so we can now focus on the Mimic AI part of Glitchtrap. What's interesting to me about the things I found while researching for this video is that it all could still be true. Things like Gregory being under the control of Glitchtrap and working with Vanny, Vanessa maybe being an Afton, Gregory creating a version of the Mimic AI, and Burntrap literally being Afton's corpse reanimated by Glitchtrap are all things things that could still be true in the current story. But my biggest takeaway from this is that Security Breach could really benefit from a solid prequel. Imagine a game where we learn how Gregory fell under the control of Glitchtrap, and how Gregory broke free from Glitchtrap's control, with the game ending right where Security Breach begins. I want you to know that I could be wrong about literally everything I talked about in this video. Scott is the only one who knows what story he was trying to tell, so don't take everything I said here as fact. Despite the communication issues surrounding Security Breach, the story that was presented in that game is the story we've got. And the most recent games seem to prove that Scott and Steelwool are back on the same page.
You know, me and Steelwool got together. We were like, look, all that matters now is making things right by the fan base. And anything that we do going forward that
Yeah, I guess that's
that
space.
story or has those same themes, I think we're just going to be in a much, much better situation to continue on.
I just thought it would be fun to try and figure out for myself what Scott's original story for Security Breach was. Subscribe if you enjoyed, and thanks for watching.
All right. Oh, whoa.
Give me a few minutes.
Okay. Before we do the next, shoot. I didn't realize what time it was. Okay. I do have to cut the stream short, but we can easily just pick this up right like first thing tomorrow. I have a day off. So yeah, I can see you guys tomorrow evening. Ah, shoot. I had to cut it. Oh no. But good reactions. Yeah, I'll definitely, crap. I gotta go, guys. Sorry, but we'll pick this up later.
Gigi, I've decided not to leave this town. Maybe I can stay and find some other nice people who will like me and accept me for who I am.
Trusting your spirit, yes, that's exactly what I'm talking about.